Welcome to another episode of the NCI podcast. Today, I've got my great friend and colleague here, Rosie, and I think we're going to get into some pretty incredible stuff. We were talking a little bit before the podcast started, and the conversation was already going to some really cool places. So I said, all right, let's get this podcast started and get some of this stuff on recording. So, Rosie, thanks so much for being on the show. Appreciate you being here with me.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
So to start off with, do you mind kind of just giving everyone a little bit of a background on who is the great and powerful Rosie Hayer?
See, this is framing at its best. Great and powerful now fits your description in that frame. um, I'm Rosie. I'm happy and excited to be here. And I think when people are asking me who is Rosie, they're asking what I do or where I am headed. If that was the question, I've been in real estate for over 15 years. I enjoy doing what I'm doing. I didn't know if I was going to like it. 30 days into real estate, I quit real estate. I'm born in India and I grew up in India. I was 20 when I came to America, and it's almost like I got to live two lifetimes in one life, which was fascinating. Um, People oftentimes feel like, it is a culture shock or it's a life change, it's a language. I didn't experience any of that. It didn't feel like I was uh, I didn't feel like I was out of place. I never felt like that. I felt like it was more of a challenge or a discovery of myself again. I had an identity crisis in a little bit in one way that, okay, do I show up in a way how I was back home, or do I adopt the new ways? And more I lived in that conflict, I started moving away from who I was. And the easiest thing was one day just wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to be effing vulnerable and just tell people, hey, I just don't know. And it was amazing to see how people showed up and how people started loving, the rawness, and it took the pressure off having to be someone. So just that's how my initiation of my career and my life started in America. And I worked in IT. Indian people are very much in IT, so I fit the stereotype just right. And during recession, I quit my job, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I knew I was crazy doing that, but I was in that moment thinking I was in my 20s. I said, okay, if I fail now, I get back up, right? I said, longer I wait to do what I really want to do, it's going to be harder to quit and do something new. So my son was, I think, maybe a month, 5 month old. So my husband and I, we just moved to Austin, Texas. We literally rolled out the map and we said, okay, pin in Austin because he's born in Houston. I worked in Dallas for a few years. We didn't want to be in those two cities. And that was our criteria to move to Austin, and begin our entrepreneurial journey. And here I am today with you on the podcast.
And a couple of things to me that have been most incredible about becoming your friend and learning about you. One has been just the meteoric success, the incredible success that you and your husband were able to create for yourselves inside of the real estate space, and the hard work and the determination that you both put towards building that business for yourselves, to me was a really inspiring thing and a very
Thank you.
inspiring story. And then about you specifically, something that's always really stood out to me is your ability to manage these two things. One is this great love and passion towards driving towards whatever the objective is that you have in your mind. And the other thing is balancing that with this incredible capacity to not hold on to things too tightly. So to
Oh,
not be your ability to have complete freedom from outcome dependence or reliance on things going a certain way, but then have complete love and drive and determination. And also like your determination, to me anyways, always seems to have been driven from a place of love and caring rather than a place of hardship and pain, or like really like rough and tumble, like, oh, it sucks but we got to go do it anyway.
Yeah.
You always seem to approach whatever project you're working on in your life with this really great love and warmth that I think is such a special thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe you met me when I was on my trajectory to change my ways. I, just like anybody else, had my time of growth, and you know, it's a learning experience. It was, I think, growing up, we grew up with a framework or a programming that, you know, you gotta commit, you gotta do things that you don't have to do. It's almost like you numb yourself with the things that you're doing, because hard work, on task, you know, do the things that you're supposed to do. Survival, right? Like everybody's trying to make sure you're surviving, and that's a big part of human behavior. But I remember it was around 2018 or 19. And I woke up one day. So in my mind, you know, I always was like, okay, if I can do something where nobody just puts any lid on what I can do, then I'm going to be happy. Like freedom was my thing from the beginning. And so when I was working in real estate, I was like, okay, you know, what is success? It was always dollar signs in the beginning, right? And I was like, okay, if I hit that number in a month, right, I would feel so good. And Merlin, I hit it, right? And I swear to you, hand to God, I never felt that empty the next moment. Instantaneously, I hit the number. It was always like bells and whistles for like 40 seconds, right? And then it's complete silence, complete void. And in my heart, I was like, what's next? Like, what am I going to do next? Okay, I hit the number. Like, there was something empty within me, right? Because I
Mm,
was performing to the outcome, right? This is what success is defined as. You take any business, right? Like you have done roofing business. There's a success how roofing business is defined, right? In that world, and and I saw that in real estate, and I was like, okay, I did it, and I felt empty. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's the next number. So I put the next number up, and I just kept on doing it. And it was never like, oh my gosh, if I didn't hit that number, I was a failure. It was always like, okay, I'm capable. I can explore a little bit further. And it was in 2018, Merlin. Um, I remember waking up during Christmas time. I couldn't wait for the Christmas time to come in because that's when my birthday is. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take 10 days off. We just wander off and we take a random trip somewhere every Christmas. We just don't know where we're headed. And Merlin, I couldn't get myself to take any phone call. I didn't want to, everything on the outside was perfect. You know, this is what success is. You got to have these many clients, these many closings, business, relationships. But inside, I felt so empty.
wow.
And I was like, okay, externally, things can happen, but internally, I can feel empty. So in that moment, I realized that, you know, there was something innate. The words are never going to describe properly what the experience was, because we are limited, and especially when my V's and W's are crossed, you guys are like right away, catch it. So in that moment, I was like, okay, there's something else, there's more to it. That's when I think my journey began in 2019. And I think what you pick up on is good 6, 7 years of work that I still continue to work on. And thank you for acknowledging it. It's encouraging to see that.
Yeah, it's been beautiful to watch. And something else that's been pretty cool is watching your ability to, I guess, apply all of those lessons that you learned to all your work with NCI. And I know
Yeah.
that you're kind of working on the NCI sales program now. You've got a live event coming up this
Yeah.
winter, I believe.
Yeah.
So very
It
excited for you for
happened.
that.
Thank
And
you.
for anyone who doesn't know, Rosie is NCI4 certified, which is the top certification that you can get in NCI. And I think has the highest score of any human being ever on the NCI4 certification exam. And your ability to implement some of these tradecraft skills and to really just take them to a whole nother level compared to many other students has been incredible. What do you think has been some of the keys for you in achieving that really high level of operational capacity?
Wow. So thank you. I I was actually caught off guard when you told me at the testing. I said, Rosie, that. And I'm always feeling that way. I never feel like I was doing it to score anything. So that's transparently my sincere answer. Um, is my pursuit to do great? Yeah, it is my pursuit to do great, because I feel like with the gifts that we are born with and the things we are given, I don't feel like it going through life. I feel like it's my selfish interest of experiencing the life to the most I can. I want to know where I break. I want to know where I fear. I want to know where is it that my hands shake, my legs shake, my body shakes. I want to know that barrier, and I want to touch that barrier and then kind of push it through. So I feel like it comes from a place of maybe I don't know everything. So anytime I sat around y'all, I always saw each one of people around me like freaking pros. Like I think I've said it enough times. I said people are like Stanford, Duke University graduates having multiple degrees and understand vocabulary. Like to me, just hippocampus, just understanding the word hippocampus was like a big deal. Like I didn't study biology for a certain reason. I think so. Number one was probably coming from a place of I don't know anything. It's time to just start with a clean canvas. So it was like high curiosity to what is this craft? Like, what is trade craft? One thing I was fascinated by was human behavior, but I don't know if I understood human behavior in a way I'm starting to understand now. So one of the things was just to, even today, like right now, if somebody asks me if we just attended any grad school class or we just sat in any of the discussions, I'm point blank in that moment. And I think you guys joke around it like D2s. D2, and I generally feel that way sometimes. So I think a place of I don't know is probably the perfect way to say that, not coming with I already always know the answer, and coming from high curiosity and then daring to ask questions. Like when I remember one of the grad school classes where it was like a little call it a slap or a spanking, like you can do better. I remember I did embedded command little what you call it, the paragraph and stuff. And I remember Chase sitting in the class and he's like, your embedded commands suck. In that moment, I had a wake up call like, hey, like you can do better, right?
How long ago was that?
That was my
Around.
first 2022, 2022, 2022. I was like, your embedded commands suck. I was like, dang, they suck. And yeah, so maybe coming from a place of I don't know, and then being call it addicted or call it whatever you want to call it. My obsession to experience myself. I want to know who I am. Like, how do I perform and operate in uncertainty when I don't know what to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of the things that I've noticed from the outside looking in that have really helped you stand out, I think, in your progression. Number one to me is your ability to come at learning from a place of playfulness and enjoyment.
Yeah.
Whereas I
Yeah.
think so many people get caught in the seriousness of things and the memorization of these formulas and uh, the anxiety of what if it doesn't go well and the performance expectation that they place on themselves. Whereas seemingly your ability to kind of confront this stuff from a place of play and enjoyment, to me, from the outside looking in, I think was one of the big keys that helped you get so good. Because to this day, I've still never seen somebody implement, besides Chase, crossfade quite as well as you can. And
Oh, thank you.
for anyone who doesn't know, crossfade is basically one of Chase's most advanced influence formulas. So if you've read the ops manual, then you'll
Yeah.
know about what it is. It's not something I don't think we can get into too much detail about here, but if you're interested in it and you're watching this, imagine each influence technique that you might learn is kind of like an ingredient.
Hmm.
Crossfade is kind of like a recipe for a cake, and it's a very
Yeah.
good recipe that makes a pretty delicious cake. And
Yeah.
Rosie, by practicing it from a place of enjoyment, I think, and the general approach you're able to take from it, you just is incredible. And I think too, the playfulness, but then also combined with the dedication that you have, so that
Yeah.
that persistence and that hard work ethic that you have kind of ingrained into you, where you're like, all right, I'm going to go practice this every single week, every
Yeah.
chance that I get in every interaction. But even just in general, whenever I get on a phone call with you or anything, you're just laughing around, having a good time, trying out techniques, just enjoying the moment, which is it's a fun thing to watch.
Yeah. I would agree. I think playfulness is something. Hmm, I would say playfulness is it's a byproduct. I don't think it's something that I can tell myself, hey, be playful.
Right.
I think playfulness is a byproduct of a state of mind, right?
Mm.
And it's almost like, hey, enjoy yourself. How do you enjoy yourself? You know, enjoyment is what you see on the outside, but internally there's like a sweetness or pleasantness of emotion happening, right? I'm having happy thoughts, but happy thoughts are not like thoughts you create. You can't create thoughts. I think thoughts are wild. They are disobedient. They don't listen to you. Like, when was the last time you got, I cannot get myself to think positive or negative. It's happening, whatever it is, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's actually a sweetness of uh, pleasantness of emotion in that moment, right? Hey, I'm glad I'm getting to do this. Like, wow, like my eyes work, my legs work, I have a voice. I have people to work it with, you know, and nobody gives a shit if I fail or succeed at it. So I give myself permission to do whatever, right? And I think that's where it comes from. It looks like enjoyment, but it's just like full on play in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're touching on a really important point here, which is that playfulness, that state of enjoyment is a reflection of an inner state. It's not
Yeah.
something, it's not a mask that you kind of put on and be like, oh, I'm going to now be Rosie in enjoyment. Let me pretend to be in enjoyment. It's something that
Yeah.
you are rather than something that you do.
Yes, 100%. I would agree on that.
What do you think if someone was watching this and they're saying, you know, Rosie, I feel depressed most days, or I have a hard time kind of finding that enjoyment in myself in anywhere of my life, let alone practicing applied behavioral skills.
Hmm.
What what do you think is some good ways to get there? How can somebody, or was that something that you ever had to go through, kind of transforming the inner parts of yourself?
Oh, 100%. I think when we say somebody's in enjoyment, um, we tend to label that person thinking, okay, this is who they are. I think if we just give ourselves permission to not box someone in, which I give myself permission to not box myself in, I give myself permission to be angry, to be fearful, to have guilt, apathy, grief, whatever, right? I'm okay with feeling all. I think that's the conversation we were having before the podcast, right? So this Rosie that you are looking at, who's playful, she's fully capable of being doubtful. You know, I have my fears, I have my internal negative dialogue, I have feelings of inadequacy, I have feeling of, you know, fear of abandonment or whatever you want to call it, all the needs decisions we discuss. I think the most important thing is first deciding to live this life for you. I think that's where I first made a perspective shift. I became more interested in making life than making a living. And I think a lot of misery comes from because we're telling ourselves we have to do that. I have to do things. I have to wake up. I have to work, you know, to earn a certain income to live a comfortable life, right? Now, sometimes those have tos lead to the get tos. Like, I get to now do this because I've finished my have tos, right? So I think when we redefine the meanings of our have tos, a lot of misery starts going away.
Mm.
And somewhere we developed this idea growing up, like, it's hard for me to go back there because it's a different mindset, how I grew up and all that stuff. I have grown out of my childhood, right? Do I have that inner child that still fears? Yes, I do have it. Does it wake up without my permission? Yes, it does wake up, but I acknowledge it. Like, okay, I'm afraid right now, right? I'm fearful right now. When I'm asking a question in a grad school class, do my voice tremble? Yes. Do I have my words double cross each other? Yes. you know but I give myself permission to f up. I say it's okay, just keep going. And to answer your question, how does somebody become an enjoyment? I think first you have to arrive at a state of appreciation, and it's not like a button you switch on. So first I have to ask myself, and this is the work I think Chase talks about a lot, and this is the work that a lot of psychoanalysts talk about, and I think it's our responsibility to learn this work, to first take care of ourselves, right? And then I can take care of the business and the world and people around me. So a very simple thing for me was to first understand, okay, what is my, when I'm having this emotion, so let's suppose I fear something, right? Let's suppose you tell me, Rosie, share your experience in front of these strangers, and I'm fearing it, right? And I know that moment is coming where Merlin is going to tell me, hey, Rosie, go on the stage now, right? So in that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling the fear. So what is my payoff? Why am I seeking this fear? Like, why all these thoughts are coming in that I'm going to embarrass myself, I'm going to forget what to say, I'm going to freeze. Like, these are the things that come to mind. I can be more creative, but I'm just, for the sake of this conversation, let's just use the journal ones, right?
Yeah.
So those thoughts are related to some kind of emotion. I don't want to fight the thought with the thought anymore, because that's like unlimited permutation and combinations. Like, you can come up with many scenarios. So I look at that emotion. I was like, okay, I have this emotion now. Then I ask myself, okay, why am I seeking it? Because by being fearful, I am able to have some kind of payoff, as Chase says, right? Like, our emotions have some kind of payoff. It has given me some kind of safety or payoff in my childhood, right? So once I have that, I'm like, okay, well, if I fear this, then I don't have to do this, right? I can keep myself where I am, right? So, first of all, why am I wanting to do it? Like, there's some level of desire behind it. So, what I have learned, where I personally get stuck the most, and I hope this is relevant to people, is that we fear the things we desire the most because we don't want to F up. We don't want to face the fact that maybe we're not good at it, right? Or maybe I could have done better, and I have not done better. I have let myself down. Or um some people have this validation approval, like where people like want to approve of me if I did it, right? So once I have that, I was like, okay, if I let go of this fear right now, and I'm okay making fool of myself, and I just go there, what's next? What would happen next?
Yeah.
What would happen? Like, would I be asked to leave? Right? So I run the whole scenario very quickly in my mind, and I make peace with that outcome. In that moment, that's when, like, okay, the permission kicks in. Like, okay, you can have fun now, and then you just step into this state of being okay with what's happening around you. People call it bravery or courage. Oh my God, or confidence, right? I think confidence is not something we do. We are very clear on that. I think the amount of work you have done on yourself and the work you do with as a lead coach at NCI, I'm sure a lot of times what you are doing is just giving other person permission, right? So just giving yourself permission to fear that thing, to feel the guilt, feel the grief, and then talking yourself out of it and walking with that emotion and let it go wherever ugly it goes. And then just sit there and then just ask, what's next? Okay, if that happened, what you gonna do? Stop living?
Right.
No, right? Like, you're gonna still have to wake up, brush your teeth, and put your clothes on and live life. So
Yeah.
that's how I internally process it.
That's beautiful. So, what do you think about the ideas of kind of turning towards emotions? I know that was kind of something we were talking about a bit before the call, and
Yeah.
you brought that up just now. Of instead of kind of running, do you think it's kind of like instead of running from the emotions, you're
Yeah.
running towards the emotions? Would you say it's
Yes.
kind of, what do you think?
Yes. 100%. I think we were, that's the moment when you said, well, we need to turn this podcast on because people need to hear it. And I want to hear your opinion on this. Not opinion, I want to hear your experience on it. How about that?
All right.
So Carl Jung is out of my interpretation right now. I have to really slow it down when studying him. He is a great psychoanalyst, right? I study his work. I study other work. I've personally worked on myself. I don't know what meditation does. I don't see any kind of colors, but I know I walk away feeling freer than I entered that practice. That's all the experience I have, right? So I think running towards emotion is like our polite society makes it a bitch ass move if somebody's feeling something. I was like, you have feelings about it? Why are you get over yourself, right? You got to think positive. This was the thing that just still irritates me. I was like, think positive. I was like, how do you think positive? Right?
Right.
Like, it's almost like our mind only knows. I study a lot of Indian spirituality. I read texts, I try to experience texts. And it's almost like our brain only knows our mind only knows two kind of calculations: addition and multiplication. It doesn't know how to subtract and divide. Can we agree on this? Like, what is your experience? Like, if you put some thought in your mind, can you think less of it, or it only becomes more of what you're thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, what comes to mind for me is kind of what you said earlier, which is that thinking our way out of a problem like that is the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah.
And my mind approaches that kind of neurologically from the perspective that we're basically asking the limbic region of our brain, which is
Mhm.
generating the emotions, to be influenced by the prefrontal cortex,
Yeah.
which is interpreting language and thought and rational thinking.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the limbic system just does not speak English. So, and this is something that Chase has taught both of us, right? Of if we try to communicate with the limbic system or the limbic region of our brain where the emotions are created, we can't do that from a perspective of logic and rationality. Which, if
Yeah.
that sounds like a bunch of fancy words to someone listening, what I'm really
Hmm.
trying to say here is you can't, to Rosie's point, say, okay, let me just, hey, brain, stop thinking about this thing, is not going
Yeah.
to be a very effective strategy. Or if you say, hey, Merlin, be happier, is not so it's like, we're approaching it from the wrong angle. Essentially, we're creating a top down approach when we need to have a bottom up approach.
Yeah. You said something really powerful here. Thank you. I like these kind of reminders. Like prefrontal cortex, completely rational, completely logical, thinks in language. Limbic, which is emotion. We like one of the sales lines we learned early in business was logic makes you think, emotion makes you act. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand that. I was like, what does this mean? They said, okay, no sale is concluded until you hit that emotion that people are feeling, right? You got to move the emotion and the decision naturally changes. So let's talk about this real quick. Prefrontal cortex and limbic brain. Limbic brain, can we both agree it's more powerful when it
Well,
comes to
what's
hijack?
definitely been proven
Yeah,
with tons of neurological studies is that the thoughts and ideas that we have in our prefrontal cortex are generated and justified by the emotions that are created in the limbic region. And most
exactly.
people think that it's the other way around. They think
Yeah,
that they have thoughts and ideas which create emotions, but actually the emotions and the feelings are what generate the rational thoughts and ideas, and we justify in that order rather than in
yeah.
the opposite order, which is an important thing to understand, I
So we
think.
all agree that limbic brain makes the decision, prefrontal cortex just takes the credit for it. I think that's how
Right.
Chase talks
That's
about
a
it, right?
that's a beautiful way to sum it up. Yeah.
Right. So here's how I look at it. Okay. So I look at um, now you're going to help me with this analogy. Okay.
I got you.
Language is kicking in. So imagine a hot air balloon. Have you seen the hot air balloon?
Yeah.
Okay. The hot air balloon has this basket and a heat thing in the middle, right? That's shooting helium into this big balloon. I think of thoughts as this big balloon on the top, right? And emotion as this little basket that has heat in it. When we want to bring that mind wandering. So when we wander off, like the hot balloon is in the air, it's just wandering off somewhere, right? It's going for a ride without our permission, adding and multiplying, not coming back. When we want to bring that hot balloon back down, we don't fight the thing on the top to bring it, pull it down. That would be such a heavy effort, right? What we do is we turn the heat down and we slowly land the basket, and the basket lands on the ground, and the whole thing just deflates. So to me, when we're
Wow.
having negative thoughts, right, or we're having fearful thoughts, or envious thoughts, or jealous thoughts, or insecure thoughts, I want to go back. I want to go to the emotion that's holding all that thought. When I address the emotion, it's almost like the thoughts just disappear.
Right.
And that emotion is like the feeling. So how is it that I'm going to be vulnerable here? You know my son, you know my husband, so we can talk about it like it's on internet. I don't give a shit anymore. Um, so one day I woke up and I was like, my son and my husband have very good relationship. And so he was like parenting him as a father, and a son is like whatever, whatever, right? And I just pulled him to the side. I just told him, I said, son, I want to tell you, your dad is probably going to be a best friend, the best friend you're going to ever find effortlessly. He's just an amazing human being, and the way he shows up as a father, like, I don't say this enough in front of him, but I'm fascinated and pulled by his way of being as a father around you, right? So I said, he's the best friend that you can always count on and lean back on. And I was just admiring him. And a few days later, my son was putting shoes on, and I was having an argument with my husband, and I was like, whatever, like, we both openly disagree. I don't have a mask around. We are a perfect relationship. We fight, love, all of it. It happens in one relationship. And I was complaining about Roger to my son. I said, son, you know what? I don't know why he's so hard headed. Like, he doesn't get it. Like, he can open up his mind and just hear me out first. I was venting, and my son is like, mom, just 2 days ago you told me he's the greatest human being on earth, and today you're complaining about him. What changed? And I was like, what the f? Right? Like, so what changed was my emotion about him. Right.
Mm,
So I think what we're trying to really simplify here is that let's address the emotion rather than fighting the thoughts, rather than
yeah.
affirming good thoughts, so we can feel differently.
So, what do you think are some of the best ways? I think that's something a lot of people struggle with is, all right, I got to address my emotions clearly, but how do I address my emotions?
It helps if nobody is watching and you can just journal them out. My biggest problem early on was that I don't want to tell it to somebody and then later on they use it against me.
Mm,
Which happens in a relationship. Like, I'm very open with Roger, so I will explain to him. I was like, look, I'm feeling incompetent right now. I'm freaked out. I've never done this shit before. I'm afraid I'm going to let everybody down, and it's going to be a complete waste of my time and everybody's time. I just say it out loud, right? And then he will just try to coach me and lecture me into things, and I didn't enjoy it. And then one day my son was like, mom, why don't you just journal it? And it's not something I didn't do before. I have done that before. I journal it, I write the ugliest feeling on it, then I read it, and I read it the next day. I was like, what the hell was I thinking when I wrote all of those things? But I give myself space to really let those, call it lower consciousness, where we feel all this fear, guilt, shame, whatever, right? Let it out, right? Or maybe I'm too good for something, right? Like the pride kicks in. So journaling really helped. And I don't enjoy writing. I'm being honest with you. So I write it and scribble it, whatever. It's just out of my head. And then reading it the next day and realizing, wow, that was a bunch of emotions. So journaling really helped me personally. And even till today. Second, I started, I have to say, full disclaimer, the moment I talk about it is the moment the ego kicks back in. Okay.
mm.
And we all know what I think you and I were texting in the grad school messaging the other day. When I said something about pride, you're like, or ego. Well, it's all ego, right? Ego is what feels prideful. Ego is what feels fear. Ego is what feels anger, all of that, right? So I didn't, um, I didn't feel like anybody would have answer to what I'm going through, because we think our problems are unique. call
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a silly thing that we all think, oh, it's just me who's suffering. Everyone else is, yeah. It might be a fun thing to talk about for 2 seconds
Yeah.
is getting really good at behavior profiling. The number one thing you first notice is how much everybody in the world is suffering, how much the things people are suffering about are all unique in some ways, and that each human is unique, but are
Yeah.
mostly the exact same general ideas. It's mostly things around shame, feelings of not being good enough, feelings of not being worthy of love, not deserving of love, feelings of missing out. And what's interesting to me is most people, I think well above 90% of people, kind of live this life in a little silo, in this bubble, walking around suffering, wearing this mask to everybody else
Yeah.
because they feel like they need to present this image of perfection, feeling as though they're alone in their suffering.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everybody else is in the same bubble, wearing the same masks.
Yeah.
And it's in some ways like one of the most heartbreaking things ever, that everyone is kind of walking around thinking that they're alone when they're more alike to every other human being in the world than they could ever imagine. They're
Yeah.
more connected and they have more in common than they could ever fathom for the most part. And I wish that more people could see just how insecure and just how suffering everyone else, because at least at the very least it'll show you that you're not alone and that
Mhm.
you're going through this is something that so many people are going through, which just that I think helps a lot. But
Yeah.
the other thing is, I think by seeing that other people are going through it allows us to confront it, because it allows us to be like, oh, this is, i'm not I'm not crazy, I'm not weird, this is something that almost everybody is going through. And if I share this side of myself, it's not something that people are going to reject love from me for. I'm not going to be
Mm.
shunned from society. To use your metaphor, I'm not going to just die or something like that. I'm still going to wake up the next day.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share behind the mask. It doesn't mean we have to walk around just trauma dumping on everyone all day. But I think
Yeah.
that
That's
it's
actually very true.
yeah, something I wish more people could see. So yeah, continue. I didn't
I
mean
no, this is very we experience this in business a lot, right? Like if the market is down and every business is feeling the decline in their volume, right? All of a sudden it becomes more easily bearable. It's just a sick way of being human. Like it's almost like if it's personal and if we find out it's universal, all of a sudden our misery goes down. And I don't know how, I think Chase will probably do a badass job at maybe doing a mastery class on this.
yeah.
But I remember the very first time, I don't remember where I was, but it was one of the training sessions I was doing with Chase. And we were doing some reps and stuff. And he walked by and he said, don't feel the attack. I said, what? Like, I didn't understand what it meant because he just came from nowhere and sat in a session that we were repping. And he said, don't feel the attack. Now, this what was internal, but externally, I was like, don't feel the attack. Like, I'm just asking, what does that mean? Speak more. Um, I said, verbal or, I said, there's no physical, verbal or physical. He said, there is no attack. And I didn't understand that. That kind of left me a big question mark. And I did a lot of introspection around it whenever I felt the need to correct the records. You know how
Mm,
we like, hey, let me just correct the records. So it's still ego, right? Like we're still playing in the ego phase. And I
right.
think this is everything. You know, this emotion thing that we're talking about, this ego thing we're talking about, it's everything. It is business, it is sales, it is human behavior, it is um, psychotherapy, it is family relationship, it is our vocational success, everything. It's just this. And I was like, what am I defending? Like, if I feel the attack, like if you feel the attack right now, Merlin, from something, it means you're defending something, right?
Right.
What is that I'm defending? Because if something I'm defending, it means I'm not confident in the strength of it, right?
Yeah.
And if
And so
I'm
yeah.
if I'm not confident in the strength of something, it means I fear it can get hurt or I can lose it. So once again, I'm going back to a fear.
Yeah.
So it would happen between Roger and I doing business conversations a lot, right? We go back and forth a lot. And when we will have a conversation and I feel the tag, I was like, you didn't like my idea. And we're very blunt, open. Like I would say, I feel the most criticized about my opinion by him, but I grow the most out of it too because I have to get over it. You know, you gotta live with the man. And so what happens in that moment is that I realize my idea had has holes of doubts in it,
Mm.
and he is sitting on those doubts and making comments from it, and I'm defending those holes that I have not fully developed myself around, right? So I feel like defensiveness is what comes across as correcting the record. Like, I need to correct the record. I'm right, you know, because I studied X number of books on this. And I still go through that phases of it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think one of the things we were talking about before, which I'd love to hear more about your perspective on this, because I think it's something you've got a lot more experience than most people in, which is this idea of being brave enough to turn towards your emotions and run towards emotions rather than run away. Because you were mentioning some things about journaling. One thing that I know we were talking about before as well is having the courage to allow your emotions to pass through you and to fully experience them. What do you think that people can do who are struggling with this idea? Because I think in my mind, that's one essential part to really developing deep levels of confidence in yourself, is not carrying around this baggage,
Mm.
basically this massive backpack filled with all of these unprocessed emotions from our past and these feelings of shame and regret and suffering, that a lot of which we just need to allow to pass through us in order to fully let go and stop running away from them. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
You know, I think you're helping me close the loop on the conversation I left open. I personally moved towards breath work, meditation. So going back to 2019, I couldn't wake up the next morning and do the work. It felt like it felt so heavy. I don't know what was heavy, but it was so heavy. And I didn't like how I was feeling inside me, regardless of how is it Galileo? Galileo, how you say
Yeah,
it?
Galileo. Yeah.
Galileo. I was reading one of his texts. He said, you know, he didn't want to be paid in praises and gifts anymore, right? So it felt like the external world was all of these praises and gifts, but internally I felt like a big O zero void. And I didn't want to turn to someone and ask them, hey, are you feeling the same way or am I me? Because it was so, you know, how you feel something, you don't know how to say what you're feeling, and you have to
Yeah. Oh
just deal
yeah.
with it
Unfortunately, all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
all the time, right? And you're very transparent and open enough to speak about it. People don't. So I was like, you know, everybody says do yoga, and I come from India. I did not grow up in a family doing yoga. Our family was not very religious. We were free to do whatever we want to do. Just fear something bigger than you. That was the bottom line. Do good things, and great things will happen. But in that moment, I didn't have a direction on who to turn to, right? So I turned towards meditation. I turned towards yoga. And I kid you not, Merlin, it was the most painful experience of my life. I
Really?
only did it because where I was more painful than what I was trying. The
Mm.
pain of living with a void was way more painful than trying something. I didn't care what it was, but something had to be different. So I got initiated into yoga and I started breath work, and I would put my mat down in the morning. I was like, another thought was confidence was a problem. Confidence still is a problem at times. Confidence was a problem. And I would tell myself I will do something, then I would do it for a few days, and I will stop doing it. Does it happen to you?
Yeah, I think it happens to everyone in
As
some
everyone.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got sick and tired of it. I was like, how long I'm gonna say that I'm going to do something and not do it before I stop trusting myself.
Mm.
Because it's almost like a part of you kind of dies, right? Like you say it,
Yeah.
but internally you're like, man, I said I was going to do it, but I didn't do it. So
Yeah.
it kills your soul a little bit. So I did it from that perspective. I was like, let's just fix one thing, build more trust in myself. So I said I was going to do it. I did it. I woke up in the morning and Merlin, I will sit down. Every part in my body hurts because you have to sit in a certain leg pose. My ankle hurts, my back hurts. If the sound on the outside of my room where I'm trying to do my breath work, where I'm supposed to be calm and centered, if the alarm goes off, perfect timing, the alarm is going to go off and the Google cannot hear that Google turn off and everybody's sleeping in the house and I'm just agitated. I had to deal it with myself. Like, look what I just did. But there was this one day, Merlin, where I had the first evidence of how our body is slave to our mind. I remember this one day, whenever I sit for meditation, I'm doing the breath work, I'm doing the 5, 6 steps, however we are supposed to. In the middle of it, I would start remembering all the things I'm going to do in a day. You know, the checklist just downloads. If you wake
Yeah.
up in the middle of the night, all the things that download. When kid you know, I was sitting like this and I'm breathing, you know, left, right nostril, however. And when the thought came in, I got up and I started walking outside the room. And I saw myself. I was like, oh my gosh, the mere thought of doing something got my body to move. That was the first time I saw how body is just taking instructions from the mind. So that was like a wake up call for me. I was like, okay, so all I got to do is change what's going on here and this will feel better. Right.
Mm.
So that was the first evidence to me. And I wanted to experience it because, you know, I have this dissonance. Now I have the word for it. How about that? Cognitive dissonance. I have this dissonance. If we are saying things that we have not experienced, is equivalent to lying. So I wanted to experience it and feel it and live it. Then I can say, okay, you try it too now. Maybe it will work for you. Maybe not. I don't know. But give it a shot. It worked for me. So that meditation and breath work made me face myself, my state when nobody's around. There is no husband there to piss me off. There is no client negotiation going bad to piss me off. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, only Rosie in a room. So I need no help to be angry and miserable. An alarm clock, a non-living thing going off, which is supposed to go off at that time, can trigger me. So basically, I'm a trigger waiting to happen. I don't need no help from outside. I'm ready to happen. So anything on the outside was just triggering me. So that's how it got me to a point today where, once again, I say it with a lot of humility. Um, since March 29, 2019, I haven't missed a single day. And
Wow.
I did it to build more confidence in me that I can do something consistently. I can win over this impulse of, I don't want to do it today. I do it. And rest is just whatever you see right here.
The epic Rosie. Tell me a little bit. Let's change gears a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit about this NCI sales thing that you got
Yeah.
going on. And I'm sure some people listening would be curious about it as well. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you've been in real estate sales for a long time now, have been extremely successful in that space. And I think you, almost more than anyone, have worked so hard on implementing Chase's lessons and all of the things that we learned at NCI University,
Yeah.
and then putting those things into a sales context and putting little tweaks on them and applying them to sales scenarios. What are maybe some of the things that you're most excited about with that, or what are some of the things that are on your mind with that?
So I think what I was disenchanted with in the sales world is how they feel like a solution for someone to open up about um, their ability to make a decision is written in a script. I had a problem with it because I used scripts in the beginning to start the conversation. I knew how quickly that went out the window when you're met with a difficult emotion on the other side, or a resistance on the other side, right? But what we're dealing with is a limbic brain. Script is a prefrontal cortex conversation, right? So more I sat in NCI and more I worked with Chase and had many coaching sessions with him, more I realized permission is persuasion. So if we are able to transfer a permission for someone, say, hey, it's okay for you to do it, you're safe, I'm here for you. We're able to change the context, perception, right? We talked about all of this in NCI. The natural outcome is a successful sale.
Right. So the
And
PCP model. So for anyone who's listening that doesn't know, PCP model, perspective, context, permission.
That's right. That's right. So the reason I feel like the NCI, the neurocognitive intelligence is not the norm in sales is because people are attached to the outcome, right? You got to quickly train a group of people into some kind of outcome, hit some numbers, right? You hit those numbers, then what? Right? You're coming from that, it's having the emotions, right? First, you're fearful. The same script works for X number of people. The same script doesn't work for other people. What is the difference? I was fascinated by that. Like, who was the Rosie who did the scripts in the beginning and heard hundreds of no's and then had 0% closing rate on the first 100 calls to 90% closing rate on the last 100 appointments? What changed in her? Did she just use a different script? Or did she become more aware of the person on the other side? Did she become more open to addressing the emotion on the other side? Did she create
Right.
more safety, right? So I think NCI sales is going to be a new way of giving people permission to create a place of safety for the other person to make a decision in an autonomous way. It doesn't
Wow.
have to be where you're told what to do. It is their autonomous decision that they self-realize it's a great decision for someone to move forward with a product or a service. That's it.
What a beautiful lens or perspective to look at sales through. That's the first time I've ever heard that. And I think it is maybe the most ethical and beautiful way to look at sales that I've ever heard. That's great. I
Thank you.
love that, Rosie. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, really looking forward to watching everything that you do with NCI sales as you build that out. The NCI sales event, I'm sure, is going to be on the NCI website here in the
Yeah.
next few months. So depending on when you're watching this episode, it may be available. If it's
Yeah.
something you're interested in, obviously you can reach out to the NCI team or to Rosie. She'll be happy to give you some information on it. Yeah, what else? What have we not covered yet? Is there anything else we should cover before we jump off?
Um, I don't know. What do you think people in NCI podcast would like to know more about?
So I think we covered generating confidence today, how we can really generate confidence in ourselves,
Yeah.
and kind of how we can cultivate enjoyment and how that's one of the really key aspects to getting good at tradecraft. And I think it was really good the stuff we went through in terms of emotions. One of my favorite topics lately, something I've been thinking a lot about.
I had no idea this is what the call was going to be about today.
Yeah, me neither, really. This is the beautiful part of a good conversation.
Yeah.
Um, I think what a lot of people probably segueing into the sales conversation
Yeah.
are curious about is, okay, Rosie, I understand that, a script's not everything, and I need to understand the prospect who's on the other side of the phone better. But how can I, like, what's my first step? I want to start understanding people better. How can I begin to understand how people work? What do I do?
Yeah. So I love this conversation. I can live this all day. I think the number one step is become 100% clear about who you are, right? And I think in Miami event where we first met, and I fell in love with you that day. I was like, man, he's gonna be my best friend. We're gonna get along just fine. And so one thing that we can do, I think that's the first time I heard Chase say, "Where you speak from is where you speak to."
Mm,
right? So when we are talking about sales, if anybody, well, let's remove the stigma around sales. Nobody likes to be sold, and nobody likes to sell either. Nobody
right.
wants to shove something down somebody's throat and say, buy it now. And I feel so good. I closed a damn sale, right? Like
Right.
I did it and I felt the biggest void in myself after some time. And trust me, I never thought I was the kind of person to close. Even if somebody didn't need it, there was always ethics there. But it was about, hey, you're supposed to close 5 times, right? So first of all, we got to go back to the authority assessment. We talk about who we are, the being part. Doing is something that we will do, but let's fix the being at the same time. So if you're operating from a place of fear, we're not good enough, or inadequacy, right? We're only going to see that much possibility with a prospect and the solution we're offering them, because the negative state we are in, it covers up all the creativity we have. I think that's where we got to first start. Fix the being. We can give you the best protocols. I studied them, but I had to work on my being at the same time to make the best use of the doing, right? Which is the protocols or the formulas or framing and all these different techniques and tactics that are taught.
Yeah.
Now, the second state would be, I would say, there are going to be a group of people who are getting great results. And I was one of them. I had great results. They're seen as the people who are go-getters. Like they just know how to make things work. They have high energy. They know how to close a sale. They know how to maneuver the conversation. But I would like to ask, how much effort is going into closing it? Or is it effortless for you? Because if we are in a human-to-human business, this should be the easiest transaction. Because I'm not selling to an elephant or a dog. I'm selling to another human, right? We should
Yeah.
understand each other.
Yeah.
So I think this is where my personal experience was that I was good at some things, but I was holding baggage, or um, there were probably sides of me that I didn't understand on how we process emotions, right? How do people go from prefrontal cortex thinking to emotions? Why do they stay stuck there? How to reframe that? How to create safety? How to be, remember the confidence part, the CDL, the whole authority triangle, right?
Yeah.
It's the quickest way to find out where our holes are that we feel defensive about. When the other person says, well, there were times my biggest drain I will give you, going back, why I pursued NCI. I got sick and tired in preparing for an appointment. I didn't want to prepare anymore. I said, why do I have to prepare for something? I should just intuitively know what is my next move based on the state of the other person. Because if I
Mm,
can change the state, emotional state of someone, decision will just naturally change.
wow. So true.
So this is what NCI sales would be all about. How to understand yourself first and then change your state. So where you speak from, it's going to speak differently too. And then be skilled and intuitive enough on how to have a conversation so we can change the state of the other person, so that PCP model, which is perception, context, permission, just happens much easily.
Right.
That would be NCI
That's beautiful, Rosie. God damn, you're good at talking. That was so well said.
sales.
Yeah.
You're
Beautiful.
gonna get
Really well
special
said.
gold stars. You're gonna get the front
Yeah.
row seat. You're gonna be
Yeah.
my buddy there. Come on, we're gonna co-create so much together. You know
Can't
you're
wait.
gonna be
Looking
there.
forward to it. I'm here for anything you need me.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for coming in, Rosie. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, and
Thank
look forward to seeing you real soon on the podcast again, I'm sure.
you. All right. Thank you, Merlin. It was good having you, buddy. I think this is the deepest conversation we have had.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great. That's why I love these conversations. So fun. All right.
Me too.
Thanks for
Bye
watching.
bye. Bye, everyone.